Hi, this is Herb Lair, and I'm doing my podcast today from the Lucy Library on the 8th floor at UAMS. And it's again with Dr. Dhall, who is the chair, head of the Neurology department. Just think of it as being Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. Age versus youth. This podcast, it's kind of a one-on-one with Dr. Dhall, and I appreciate you setting up the time to talk to me today. I was looking through the videos, and I want to kind of start this way because I think it brings the interest in some of the reasons we're doing this. But I saw that when you were, I guess, becoming a doctor or deciding to be a doctor, in maybe the 10th grade in high school, that you found that your father had Parkinson's.
My name is Dr. Rohit Dhall. I'm one of the neurologists at UAMS. My reason for becoming a doctor and my reason for choosing my specialty both are tied to something that's quite personal to me. My dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease when I was in 10th grade, and so everything from there is moved based on finding new treatments and new cures for what my family has suffered with. I think of clinical care as a combination of managing lifestyle, trying to treat the underlying condition with what tools we have, and also looking at the future and trying to find new tools for treatment of condition. Our goal is often to bring people from a state where they're quite disabled to a good functional status. It's amazing what the amount of strength that people possess in the face of adversity. You ask them how they're doing, and a lot of times they'd smile and say they're doing fine. And I think it does take a tremendous amount of human strength to go through and live with a degenerative illness, either live with it yourself or have a family member live with it. So it's always inspiring to work with the group of patients that I do because of all the courage that they show.
Tell me a little bit about your family and that experience there, because I really kind of want to get a little more information how that came about and your size of family and where you were. And so just kind of give us a little detail on that.
Thank you, Herb, for having me. So I grew up in a small town in northern India, and nobody else in my family has.
So you were born in India?
I was born in India and grew up in the state of Punjab. This is about 6 hours or so out from New Delhi, a train ride. And you'll see why that's important, and actually you'll see why that has colored some of the stuff that I'm trying to do here, including in Arkansas at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. But I grew up in northern India, had a great family. My dad was a career banker. He was a bank manager in a nearby city when he started notice issues for which I think it took about a year for us to understand what was going on. His symptoms that he was experiencing were in the form of a tremor that would stay with him. It was on his dominant side. I remember it was on his right side. And then in the middle of the night, he would have all sorts of, really bad cramps in his feet. I remember him asking my mom to rub his feet because he was having issues that prevented him from being able to go to sleep.
Right.
Work-wise, he continued to work, but was trying to understand what was going on. And he must have gone to doctors in my city, in the city that he worked, that was about an hour away from our hometown, and had pretty good medical facilities. Then went to the state capital, Chandigarh, trying to, again, get some sort of a understanding of what was going on. I remember reams of EEGs, brain wave studies that he brought home with him, like a big stack of them. I was a kid at that time and was kind of perplexed by the amount of time it was taking for people to be able to figure out what was going on with him. And then I was in 10th grade. I remember when he received the diagnosis of Parkinson's. We didn't have to, so in growing up, I didn't have to choose what I wanted to do till in India it happens much earlier than here. We didn't have to go to college to start medical school. So I was in my 11th grade, and the amount of time it had taken my dad and the difficulty that it had taken for him to receive the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease was what kind of triggered my interest in neurology. My interest in neurology was triggered even before I went to med school or was committed to going into medical school. I can articulate that part now, but didn't know at the moment. If you had asked me in 11th grade why did I go into medicine, I'd say, well, I'm not good at math. That's why I'm going to medicine.
Now, what size family do you have?
So I grew up with my grandma and my grandpa in the same household. We had a joint family. When growing up, I had cousins who lived. This was a small house. The actual size of the house I grew up in is the size of this library.
Right.
Till I was in 6th grade when we moved to a different house. It was the size of this library, and it had our family. So there were 5 of us, my mom and my dad, and 3 siblings, me, my younger brother, and my younger sister. My cousins, so my aunt and uncle and 2 of their kids, and my grandma and grandpa. And then when my dad's sister, youngest sister, was young, she was in that same house about this size.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun.
I can imagine. Yeah, I have visited over there. I did a cable show in New Delhi, and when I was there, I wanted to go down to Agra. And see the Taj Mahal. That was one of my goals. And at that time, I don't think some of the roads that's been built since then, but they said go by rail, and I didn't have time, so I hired a driver, which was an experience because it was like a 3-lane road and going the wrong way on a one-way street. There's a lot of things going on, activity, but it was really I just remember all the things of being there and how neat it was to go down there and see that, and also the culture there really caught my attention, and I kind of joke about going out to see some of the carpet makers or rugs or whatever, and they were always kind of upselling, and they always had something in mind for you to buy. So I just really fell in love with the people there. I know it seems one of the things I've found, and I found at UAMS that there are a lot of doctors here with India or India descent. Why do you think that is? I mean, is that just a thing that's happened over the years, or is that something that I'm just kind of wondering about that, because I've found that they're really great doctors, and it can be male, female, young, old, or whatever, but every one of them has been very time conscious or very good with what's called bedside manners or whatever.
Right.
So why do you think that's?
Well, that's high compliment, I think, coming from you. I will share that we pride in the Department of Neurology. We pride ourselves in our diversity. We have physicians from all over the world, several from India, some from the Middle East. We've actually native Arkansans in the group as well.
Right.
So it's a very, very strong group, and I think diversity attracts additional diversity. If people know that it's a welcoming place, that they're going to be appreciated, well taken care of. In the South, there's also, so the culture of the South is of welcoming people into the mix, and Little Rock, we're fortunate to have enough cultural diversity available compared to some other, if you go into rural Arkansas, it's harder to find that
amount of people from different backgrounds. So I think all of that is attractive. We, in general, in the medical community in the United States, there's a lot of physicians of Indian origin who've traditionally come to the U.S. I came, for example, for training and then ended up staying because I made my life here in the U.S. My spouse, my wife, grew up in Houston, and so it ended up working out for me. But many people come for opportunity and stay because there are definitely good opportunities.
So when we talked about you being a 10th and 11th grader in India, how did that develop? Getting there to here, or how many steps did it take to make that? I'm just curious.
So it's a circuitous journey. I'll share that. I knew what I wanted to. I wanted to be working in the neurology space when my dad was diagnosed. Then I went into med school. I went to school in New Delhi at the preeminent medical school that's there in India. All India Institute of Medical Sciences. And so I remember the first actually month that I was there, during hazing, one of my seniors, a guy was 4 years ahead of me, asking, "What do you want to do?" And at that time I shared my personal connection with Parkinson's and the hope to make progress to maybe cure the disease.
Yeah.
And I told you, I did not know I was interested in neurology. I was just focused on, this is the diagnosis, this is what I want to do. And he said, so you want to be, these are his words, they're impressed in my memory. He said, you want to be a neurosurgeon. As if, neurosurgeons are very smart people. They do a lot of good stuff. As if that would be a path to curing Parkinson's. So I thought, okay, so it's something in that, neurology, neurosurgery space. Then in med school, I just hated neurology. Neurology is, there's a tremendous amount of information to process. The initial blush with neurology, it appears complicated.
Right.
And so I thought I'll be a pediatrician.
Really?
That's what I was going to do. Big difference from big change in TAC till in my intern year. So this is in the year 1999. I was 22 at that time. In my intern year, one of my juniors said, "Well, there's this grand rounds that's that's going to be presented. Do you want to come with me?" And I was after a call, tired. I said, "Sure, I'll join you. I'll grab a cup of coffee on the way, just like I'm here, and I'll join you." And I remember seeing one of the first patients that they took through deep brain stimulation at my home institute in India, and the remarkable change from before to after the surgery. Now these are, I would say that those were marketing videos almost.
Right.
The department is trying to show what they're able to accomplish. I remember this, so the woman who had this DBS, she was young. Before this conversation started, we were talking about Michael J. Fox. And you see the extra wiggly movements that he has really, really prominent that, catch your attention instantaneously. Right. I've been taking care of people with Parkinson's for about 25 years now. I still vividly remember the horrible dyskinesias that she had, this woman in the video. I've never seen those types of dyskinesias since. I've seen really, really bad dyskinesias I can't even describe. But hers were very vivid upper limb extra wiggly movements that looked like she was possessed.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. You see all kinds of things on the YouTube and the videos, and there's a pretty good range, and that's why it was kind of caught my attention is a lot of the motor type thing, and I did have an uncle that it had some of that, and it was pretty obvious that, his hand movements and different things were pretty much, hard to control and that type of thing. So I understand what you're getting at there. Now, what is the condition of your dad then? I guess I wanted to make sure we connected that situation with what you observed then and what he where he is and what his situation is now, I guess.
Yeah, sure thing. So as I shared, he received this diagnosis, I believe, in 1993 when I was in 10th grade. It might have been 92. It might have been late 93, early 1994. At that time, he had a right-sided tremor, and then I shared about the nighttime cramps. Mm-hmm. But other than that, he was physically doing reasonably well. 1995, when I started at med school, I asked him to see one of the chair of neurology at my medical school, Dr. Bihari, who has since retired. And so he got under her care. He had to go to, 6 hours away to New Delhi. That's I shared that's left a big impression on me. Right. He had to go out of town, out of state, to the national capital to get care for his Parkinson's. And I desperately hated that. Sure. But I also knew that was probably much better care than he would find within the state or within like a tri-state area.
Right.
He did reasonably well with, the treatment plan that she devised for him. This is 30 plus years of him having Parkinson's disease. He has had a significant amount of disability from walking issues, from what's called freezing of gait, which is a big interest of, if I may share, your doctor here.
Dr. Vermani, yeah.
Like one of the world's experts in freezing of gait.
Yeah, we've talked about that quite a bit,
Yeah. So, my dad has had a lot of freezing of gait. He's also had a significant change in his cognitive function. I think that was one of the things that was of interest to you, also to talk later on in this conversation. But for physically, having lived with Parkinson's disease for 30 plus years, itself is a feat. I take care of many people with Parkinson's. We find an occasional person who comes in and says, I've had Parkinson's for 30, 35 years.
Right.
And so I'm grateful that he's, had that longevity in spite of his Parkinson's disease. And he had to retire in 2009. So he had to retire about 15 years into his disease. He retired because he said his tremor was becoming more problematic.
Right.
Not because his mentation was slowing down or he was having any significant trouble keeping up with his job. So he had this opportunity to take retirement. He took it. And I told him, Dad, don't do that, because remember, there's a tremendous amount of social and cognitive benefit of working.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And at retirement, that rug is pulled from underneath your feet. Mm-hmm. So people don't realize that you have to replace that culture of, well, I'm gonna get up on time, go into work, I'm gonna do the math part or whatever your work involves. I'm gonna have to remember the names of the 500 people that I'm gonna be seeing at work.
That's good.
And all of that is good for our brains.
Yeah.
And then you go from there to, unless you say, I'm going to go from there to, I have a plan, I'm going to go fishing with my friends, mm-hmm. and go sightseeing or whatever. I'm going to have this kind of a routine for myself, and I'm going to invest in exercise, I'm going to invest in socialization. You lose all those benefits. This is, again, an opinion, but you lose those benefits when you take retirement. And so I was
How old was he when he retired then?
So he was 59.
69, okay. So
59.
59, okay.
Yeah, now he's 74. So he's been retired for about 15
years. Does he live in India? Or?
He still lives in India.
Okay, and you say, does he have an active life, or is he
no. So unfortunately, he didn't really heed the advice of saying have some sort of a plan. If nothing else, volunteer, engage in things that are gonna be keeping your mind active. We had him here about 6 years ago, 7 years ago now, and when he was here, actually my wife ended up nudging him to take some art classes.
Okay.
And he was a banker. He complained about it incessantly. He said, I don't like this, But he created some wonderful, watercolor work, some sketches, etc. that we ended up actually basing our Art for Parkinson's program on that experience.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And many people have been, have engaged in art. I think you saw the display.
Yeah, we did, and we've talked about maybe that where I live out there is maybe doing something like that. We've been in discussion with that, so there could be some things there that in our little community out there that we may do that too. So I think that's great. I mean, it keeps you moving, keeps you active, and that's what's important. I know that that's what I was kind of when I got into what I do, and again, I was in technology, and as I said, traveled, and been some things happen there, and there were some things that they looked at as being more maybe delusional, but I think whenever you're in technology and you have a company in the Ozarks and you go all over the world, that's pretty delusional in itself. So
I see.
It's hard to differentiate. Is he really different, or is it some other things come up? So that was kind of what I was going to lead into, and I don't know. And I talked about this some as there's famous people like TV personalities and movie personalities, and they did this on Sunday Today with Willie Geist, and he had a celebrity there that Ryan Reynolds, who's probably top box office right now, and I wanted to see how they presented that, because they were kind of in effect writing the legacy of their father. And I know in your situation, you've kind of been faced with that somewhat as to what he's done, how you represent what he's done, and is he still doing what he wants to do? And so I'm kind of the face to that some of those fathers out there that people are not seeing, because I'm doing a podcast, which there's some pros and cons to that. I mean, for myself, I see it as an opportunity to do things and work on my speech and work on cognitive things, because we're sitting here with no real pre-rehearsed dialogue, so we got to kind of go with the flow. But other than that, you really think of ideas of what you can do and whether they're good ideas, and you don't want to damage anybody in the sense of the privacy issue. But then again, you can sit back and kind of build a cocoon, and then it's the other people's opportunity to build that history. And I was kind of thinking about that when I saw that interview. Was it's nice that they're doing what they're doing, but then again, one of the fathers had died, so he's already passed 10 years ago, and he had a different type, even what you're discussing, and even what Bill Geist's father, having more tremors. And that's why I thought, it'd be nice to sit down and really kind of explore that a little bit as to what you're seeing, because you're probably seeing all types of things. And what I've gotten into is, how do you handle that? And when you have something that's delusional, it may be something that you dream. It may not be so much during the day, but it's just things that happen in your life. So I wanted to kind of get your feel on, maybe people like myself doing what I'm doing or not doing what I'm doing, or just, your thoughts on what that really is.
Sure thing. So I think I'll frame the question in a few different contexts. So the face of Parkinson's, so to speak, something that is very declarative that you can pick up from across the airport terminal is somebody who has a, a shake that's there when they're not using their arm, or who has difficulty with walking with one arm not swinging very well. So the face of Parkinson's is motor dysfunction. What is going on with the rest of the body is not as easily visible to others. They can't tell what's going on with the speed of processing for you, with your mind. They don't know if there are issues happening with the rest of your body, changes in swallowing, changes in gut function, changes in smell, taste, sleep issues, sleep disorders, bladder control, blood pressure regulation, all this, the whole constellation of things that comes along with Parkinson's disease. And we take care of people. It's not just me and my partners. We all take care of people with varying degrees of motor and non-motor dysfunction in Parkinson's. For when there's very little tremor, it's hard for somebody to pick the subtle signs of Parkinsonism. I think you shared even in your own case that was difficult. But when we see an individual who comes in with when there is a concern for Parkinson's, we ask about all of this. We ask about how mood and emotions are. We ask about signs of psychosis, Parkinson's-related psychosis, including delusions and hallucinations. We ask about attentional difficulties with thinking, processing information, getting words out, navigating space, things like that, which are it can be seen quite frequently in people with Parkinson's. I mean, some of them are almost always there. Some of them happen later on in individuals' battle with Parkinson's. When we think of traditional Parkinson's disease, like the cognitive changes and the issues with delusional thinking, hallucinations may come quite late in the disease. When I was in California, we looked at, are there predictors of who may get thinking changes early versus late? And I think there's now information about the genetics of Parkinson's that also informs where some of the cognitive issues or issues with, being able to separate what's real versus what's a dream state, as you alluded to. What's a hallucination versus reality, what's a delusional thought versus reality, can be impacted. And we found that people who have significant REM behavior disorder as a precursor to Parkinson's symptoms, motor symptoms of Parkinson's, and hyposmia, lack of smell, may be at a greater risk of cognitive changes or of issues with visuospatial processing happening early in the disease process. Since then, I think it was around that time, so I came here about 8 years ago and found out that people with a specific type of gene mutation that presents with Parkinson's disease called glucose-ribosydase type A, GBA mutation, have early impact on cognitive function, have an overall faster motor progression, but also a significant amount of cognitive and affective presentation with their Parkinson's disease. I don't know if that's so. I know that I carved out.
No, I think where you're going is what I'm interested in. I know that myself, I can go out and walk in a 4-foot swimming pool and walk pretty normal, and from that standpoint, the motor issues are not as big an issue. And I feel like I can sit here and pretty calm all the time, and then I can have thoughts or things that come up, and there's nothing serious about it, but you're always wondering, where you're going to go from where you are and what can you do. Is it more in the psychiatry or more in the mental? I know you've developed a lot of things in your library and things that can be looked at, and so I'm trying to make sure that I don't leave any stones unturned, as far as they say.
Yeah.
Looking at things and talking to people, And that's one of the things that I think when people look at the podcast over the years or look back at it, they can either see a gradual thing or staying some certain pace and say, well, you can see a certain level of change. And so I'm hoping to get that as part of my history, not only, for my benefit, but for the benefit of others, because I try to make, as I said, subjects informational and somewhat entertaining and motivational, and talk to different variety of people.
Right.
And by doing that, I'm trying to cover the areas that we always think about with anxiety and depression, and part of that's delusional.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to make sure that what I'm doing is kind of fun now, and I'm sure that at a point it'll run its course. But as long as I feel like doing it, I'm probably going to do it. And I know that the issues you're faced with is, some people say, well, you really are a different person than I remember.
Yeah.
And so when you're starting to do those things, you can see sort of new friends, and you can see some of the old friends maybe looking at it a little differently. So
Yeah.
it's a hard thing for people in the situation I'm in, and all I'm trying to do is maybe at some point validate the fact, and I've done that somewhat with people, with the doctors, and kind of going back with Dr. Vermani at times, and we've tried to talk about it, but it's more of a maybe an informational, educational standpoint that I'm trying to bring out there, that you're seeing this type of situation, you're concerned about it, and what we're trying to do and what you're trying to do, and as far as here that we can all benefit, and I can get that message out to people that we're trying to get out, because sometimes I run with a kind of a little bit of rougher crowd, in the sense that it's a little bit more unplugged, as they say, and maybe it's because I'm not a doctor, or maybe I may say something that maybe not it's totally been vetted in a sense, but it may draw somebody's attention. It did to somebody about smell, and we had a discussion, but the thing about it was kind of interesting, because they had a problem that wasn't Parkinson's, but it is a problem that people have, and
Right.
they need to address that issue, and not worry that, wow, they're going to find out I got Parkinson's, I don't want to go see a doctor or something.
Yeah, so I think you bring up a number of things. There's this cultural context of the cultural expectation of going from youth into advanced age without any breakdown of your body or mind, and that's not how God intended things to be. There's going to be some amount of breakdown. So in our society, viewing frailty as something to avoid, and I think there is tremendous strength in social ties, even weak social ties. Like, having the medium that you have, reaching out, I think it's probably giving you back meaning and allowing you to touch other people's lives through information, through getting your message out there. That, the programs that we're trying to create here, all the services that we've started for Parkinson's disease here, they match some of the programs that we had when I was in Arizona, where we had a tremendous budget, all from philanthropy, all from donation. We had a marquee event called the Celebrity Fight Night. Mr. Ali.
There at Phoenix, I know they have a center there with Muhammad Ali. Yeah.
That was our center, and the center was founded on endowments from Fight Night and other philanthropic endowments. We have, for our Parkinson Center, we have nothing. We've earned all of our the designations that we have through applying nationally and saying we want you to recognize what we're building here. What we've built here are our peer support services for our patients with Parkinson's and their caregivers. So there are programs in art and music and cooking. These programs don't just challenge manual dexterity and skill of the hands. They're to bring people together. They're to connect them. They're to provide a social support network. I just was talking with one of my patients who, it hurts me, one of my patients has been a patient here at the university for some time and was not aware of the types of programs that we have. Their main complaint was loneliness.
Yeah, I understand.
And, we need to change the overall cultural milieu somehow of our country to where people feel supported, regardless of whether they have a physical ailment or not. Parkinson's is not contagious, so why would people feel like I can't share it with somebody that I have this ailment? Or, it's not.
Well, that was kind of what I was looking at there when you start about a cooking school or art, and of course we're in a, it's kind of a community for the maybe over 60, but it would be, if there's something like that happens, it wouldn't be just for people with Parkinson's, it'd be for anybody that wants to attend a group or whatever.
You could potentially do that, and I think that there should be programs like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is it?
So my dad, I shared, he's back in India. He's been there 7 years since he left here. We've sent him stuff, material. Well, you could use this for paint and paper. He took these classes with others who were just learning art. It wasn't art specific to Parkinson's. Art is art.
Yeah.
Being in a group when you're making something, creatively expressing yourself, is itself therapeutic.
Yeah.
You brought up, issues with thinking, and so one of the drugs that we developed, it's called pimavanserin or Nuplazid. It's a drug used for treating psychosis and Parkinson's. During the conduct of that trial, very interesting, and I don't think that this is readily, you won't be able to find this information from looking at the pivotal manuscript. We wrote that manuscript. It's hidden, but one of the interventions that we did, a brief intervention of just asking the individual with Parkinson's and psychosis and their care provider to engage systematically multiple times a day, either playing cards, going out for a walk, and having a conversation. That itself reduced the amount of psychosis to where people didn't have to go on a medicine for a small number of our patients. This was for a short period of time. We did it for a few weeks to say, is psychosis temporary? Would it improve on its own? In which case, they don't need to be on this medicine. This was as a part of screening them into whether or not they needed this medicine. We forget about that. There's a tremendous power to social contact.
Yeah, I know that I got into rock steady boxing. I haven't got into Little Rock yet, but I found it, the camaraderie and other things, it's a little different than, say, physical therapy in the sense that you're there with other people and different issues. And what I found was, it was interesting, all the backgrounds that the people had.
Yeah.
A lot of it kind of is something they had at maybe a later stage in life, and they'd retired and they'd already done a lot of things, so they had a lot of history. So you run across those kind of situations, and they serve as both an encouragement, but also to talk about things that they've faced, and it's really a good program. And there are other programs, like you say, but I think that's what you're trying to get at, and that's what I was hoping to bring out in some of the things that I'm doing here. But I think I'm going to get back to a little bit of a different angle, and I know that we're going to wrap this up here pretty soon. But the idea here, when you're, I don't know, I guess you're the chair of a department. Explain what that is for people like myself.
Yeah.
I know your age, you look like my son. He maybe a little younger than my son. So when I'm sitting here talking to you, and I think about this old, gray beard or somebody that's been around a company or something, and they've kind of gotten to the age where, it's a little different feel. But I understand technology and I understand the medical aspect of it. So kind of explain a little bit of what that means.
Sure.
And are your calls anything else other than chair, or what is the title that you have?
Yeah. So I'm a professor and chair of neurology at the University of Arkansas for Medical Science. I think your filters make me look better. But basically, I run the department when it comes to mapping out what our mission is. Our mission is providing care for everybody in the state of Arkansas for complex neurological issues. I run the department when it comes to developing strategic research interests. And one of our core focus, for example, this is a research interest of mine and of my partners, is to find better treatments and hopefully a cure for Parkinson's disease. We have educational mission. Our mission is to bring the next generation of providers who can provide nursing and neurological care, for educating first responders, educating our patients about resources in Parkinson's, not just Parkinson's, in neurological care, and providing peer education, so other neurologists in the state, making sure that we are a reliable conduit of sharing information about developments in the neurology space. So the hat that I'm wearing now is not limited to Parkinson's or to movement disorders.
Right.
It's across the board, setting the agenda, so to speak, for our state's neurological health and care. And neurology includes things like stroke, things like MS, headaches, degenerative disorders like Parkinson's, also things like ALS and neuropathies, and all sorts of disorders of the brain and the nervous system.
Well, when I think the general public, they didn't get too much information on this, but the national plan to end Parkinson's was a kind of a grandiose act that was signed. It didn't really get a whole lot of publicity. I mean, I had to dig deep to even get information on it. Is that something that is going to be kind of something for maybe some of the foundations? And I know they pushed it real heavily, and they were looking for research, but as we know, there's a lot of issues with the care part of it. I mean, if the care part is done really well, it really cuts down a lot of the expense, and I found that sometimes it gets to checking boxes versus a real good care program, and it finding it early, doing something, and then hopefully with some way of ending it how does that plan enter into Arkansas and Little Rock and UAMS, I guess, or do you see a connection here at all? I mean,
I think it's a fair question. We are waiting on actual operationable metrics that come out of this plan to end Parkinson's. I think it's a great initiative, great effort if it could be translated. We've put man on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
We've sequenced the human genome through initiatives that started like this. We have a plan to put a man on the moon. We have a plan to sequence the human genome. We have a plan to understand the connections of the brain. These initiatives are quite meaningful in supporting research. We also have a gestation period. Kennedy didn't say we're going to put a man on the moon and tomorrow it happened.
Yeah.
So, and also it ends up anchored to its words are easy. It's
Mm-hmm.
putting money that matters.
Yeah.
So how much and how they're going to allocate. How are they going to invest? Are going to get the investment from the community.
Well, I think it's I mean, I'm looking at that, and hopefully, I've even been trying to see how the task force is going to be organized, and some of that, even with my podcast, is trying to kind of keep it, ideas flowing there, just to make sure that people like myself and others that understand this type of thing. And again, it's the politicians got to get the government to make it work, basically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from is, what needs to happen there and what needs to happen with, your representative and your senator and then everything else that we're talking about. And of course, UMS has got to a major importance statewide to do that.
So, I'll share that, planting a flag or saying this is what we want to do is the important first step. We're, saying that we're committed to finding a cure for the fastest growing neurodegenerative disorder across the world is Parkinson's disease. Saying we want a cure for this, because this is important, is a good first step. And in general, we've had, I would share, Congressman French Hill, Senator Bozeman, I've had meetings with them. I know that they're invested in, in the healthcare of our community. I mean, I'm talking about my senators and congressmen. But similarly, I believe that they're across the country, there are going to be people who are representing their population or invested in it. How does how does this piece of paper translate into actual money for research? We're waiting on seeing those aspects, and I'm optimistic that ultimately there's going to be additional funding for Parkinson's, whether it's at UAMS or outside. But I think this is an important first step.
Well, you were alluding to the, and again, I've got a friend spent a lot of time out in Phoenix, but what happened with Muhammad Ali, and of course, anytime you get into something that's funded on the level that they funded out there. Now, I think you mentioned Acadia, is it pharmaceutical? I know that was in that piece with, when they were talking about that, and of course, were they part of that as far as Muhammad Ali, or was it something else that I know they're doing some things in that area too. I just wanted to kind of connect some of those things, and maybe we have people. I mean, we got billionaires all over Arkansas, or we got as many per capita anyway, and I'm kind of putting my marketing hat on here a little bit, but there's some things that you're trying to do and things that were done there, and there's no reason that where we connect the dots that we make that happen, because there's no reason not to. I mean, I've pointed out to people, I said, well, Parkinson's, they say a million, but there's a lot of people not diagnosed because of a lot of reasons, but then again, they don't. I can be, stage 4, and I'm not going to die tomorrow either. It's not the urgency you see sometimes in cancer and some of the heart and other things. So, it's an issue, but it's hard to put the urgency on it other than, you'll see the Michael J. Fox push,
right.
But the numbers are rather small, and so I guess to build some momentum or get something going there, I'm trying to think in terms of what you're faced with there, because it is kind of an issue.
So I'll share what my experience was at other centers that I've worked at. I was in Birmingham, Alabama. I was then at the Muhammad Ali Center in Phoenix. And then when I was in California, I was at this standalone research institute called Parkinson's Institute. I've taken care of people who were literally cured cancer, took care of the chairman of a top 5 Fortune 500 company with Parkinson's disease, took care of hedge fund managers who tremendous amount of money. When I was in California, people invested in research at their local institute. Each of these places did not get built just because a doctor wanted to, spend his time caring for people with Parkinson's disease. That does not allow for coalescing resources that are needed in the community by the community. And so, I've been fortunate to have been at places where people said we were going to invest. We've been fortunate to have some support here. But I think grossly the support is quite low compared to many of the other places. And I want to highlight that issue. There's no reason why we can't have a world-class institution in Arkansas that is funded through local philanthropy. Actually, with or without that funding, I fully intend to make sure we have a world-class institution here, UMS, in Arkansas, that is nationally recognized for the type of care that we're providing. It'll be a lot faster and a lot sooner with investment from the community.
Well, I'm glad we kind of, I guess, able to wrap it up on that note. But that's what I wanted to kind of build up to, is kind of put the story out there, but also put, I mean, we can see the leadership here, and I know the doctors, and everything's in place to do it. So that's why I wanted to kind of be able to sit down and talk to you, because I'm actively involved for a lot of reasons, but it's myself, my family, and other people that I've kind of come across that really become really great friends. You're kind of working together to see what can we do, and I kind of joke sometimes that at my age I'm kind of a guinea pig, because I do have some health benefits and everything, but I'm out there, I'm willing to do and try and go, and until it kind of gets to a point where I can't. I really think it's kind of best to take what I'm doing, and so I appreciate the time, and I don't know, I have to go to the point of asking you a really kind of a fun question here, is what is your happy place, or where do you like to go, or what do you like to do to wrap this up? I'm sure there's places that you either like to do with your family or go, and I want to, since we kind of titled our podcast is Finding Your Happy Place, it can be some idea, something, or something, but
I think I grew up. So I grew up, I told you, in this space. About this size. This is actually big. I mean, it was literally 2 rooms with a big bunch of family members. I think when you're around family, that is happy time. Some of the places I've visited here, like we went to the caverns with all the crystal. I can't remember the name. Blanchard Caverns with my kids. I think it was just a fun thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to separate. Was it fun because of the place? I think it's fun because of the people. There are things that I do with my patients, my family, that all are give me a lot of joy. And there are things that I'm sure I'd go in and listen to some LPs after this, and I know that's that gives me some distance and ability to reflect as well.
Well, I really have enjoyed this. I always tell people that I can look at people's eyes and see their heart. So it's nice to do it face to face. I know I've done a lot of ones that are not face to face, but it's always better. So I appreciate your time, and we'll sign off here, and we'll look forward to be some follow up here at some point.
Thank you, Herb. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Well, that's great.
Yes, sir.
Well, I appreciate your time.